Hello everyone and welcome back to the third and final installment of my complete guide to a world conquest as the Timurid Mughals. In the previous videos we showed you guys how to play the Timurid's opening moves and form the Mughals, as well as conquer India and go through the court and country disaster after the Age of Absolutism hits. Now all we have left is to show you guys how exactly to conquer the world and finish off the world conquest achievement. We have a lot of gameplay and tips and tricks to cover, so without any further ado, let's get into it. We ended the previous video after finishing up the court and country disaster, and so now we're thinking about going into the Malacca trade node. Here we go and finish off a bit of Sayak and take the majority of their land. After another war, they should be fully annexable. And because Malacca is one of the richest trade nodes in the entire world, we're going to be adding every single province we can into trade companies, as well as the land that we took from Ming China. Basically all of the land in Eastern Asia we will be adding to trade companies because of the high value trade goods that are in these provinces, as well as the amount of nodes that we can push to Persia after pushing into India. Previously we absolutely decimated Ming in a few wars, and now that our truce has expired with them again, we are going to go in and take as much land as we possibly can, for a third time. We got a whole bunch of claims on Ming from some events that fired, as well as fabricating our own, so we're going to take as many of those as possible to save ourselves on some admin, and try and take as much land as we possibly can in terms of war score. The event that I'm talking about is the Riches of China. When Ming is on low mandate and we are bordering them, this event has a chance to fire. When it does, we gain claims over a state that Ming has, and we will likely get this event multiple times as we do in this run to gain a lot more claims and conquest China even easier. Next, we decide to declare war on Chagatai and clean up the northern tribes. Unfortunately, Oirat also has the same idea and starts occupying some of Chagtai's provinces. Since we would not be able to fully annex them, instead we decide to declare war on Oirat and start taking those provinces that they are occupying back from them. This pulls Ming into the war, and we were able to take even more land from them without having to worry about that truce timer. Once Ming is out of the war, we are able to fully siege down Oirat and peace them out of the war. Since we fully annex them, we also gain Mongolia as a vassal for free, since we annex the overlord. Piecing out Oirat allows us to fully siege down Chagatai and take as much land as we possibly can, because they're not occupying the provinces anymore. And if possible, what I like to do is give my land that gives me overextension to one of my large vassals, especially in this part of the world. We start giving these provinces that we just conquered from Chagatai to Uzbek to keep us below the 100 overextension limit. An unfortunate side effect of accepting particularist demands is that you will likely get particularist rebels again and again throughout your capital in whichever land that you had stated up and reduced autonomy in. One of the most important goals for this part of the run is forming the Caliphate. Unfortunately for us, we do not have a good CB on our Sunni neighbor, the Mamluks, but we do spend 400 or so Diplo points to take the provinces required and cut them in half. This delays our annexation of Deccan, but we will be able to annex them very shortly once we catch up on our Diplo, and it will also take another war with the Mamluks to get the last provinces that we need from them for the Caliphate. During our truce timers with the Chinese and the Manchurian countries, we decide to go over and attack Russia with the Deus Vult CB. We know that they can beat them because our troops are extremely strong and we have the numbers, so I decide that it's time to go into Europe and spend some of our aggressive expansion over in this part of the world. After a lot of won fights on defensive terrain, we are able to defeat the Russians and the Swedes in order to take a lot of land from Russia and basically cut them in half. We prioritize mostly forts as well as borders with some of the other Christian nations so that we can get Deus Vult on them as well. Once you finish the humanist idea group, make sure to take the policy with the offensive idea group to get that -5 years of separatism. We forgot it in this run, so we had to take it after we had already pieced out Russia, so we don't get the unrest reduction that we otherwise would have gotten. Our war with Russia took a good amount of time, and our truce with Ming is up once again. We go back in on the Emperor of China, who is surprisingly still the Emperor despite Manchu creeping at the border, and encircle them, taking all of their coastal provinces. So we go in and co-belligerent their one ally as well. During this time, manufactories spawn, but unfortunately spawns over in Germany and not within one of our provinces. So we'll have to eventually get that one after a little bit of time. Now that we have a border with Manchu, we can declare a Deus Vult on them. So we go in and absolutely destroy them, especially with the help of our 2 horde vassals. Here I will demonstrate 2 things that I will be doing for the rest of the game. The first thing is truce breaking. The Mughals have an innate 10% reduction to their stability cost modifier. This plus a few other modifiers that you can acquire allow the Mughals to stab up relatively cheaply. Additionally, we are going to be doing what is called chaining wars, which means while we wait for our Manchurian cores to finish, we are able to have a war with Ming and piece them out the second that the cores finish, allowing us to constantly be coring up the land and never wasting a minute of time. And now that we have beaten Ming again, it is time to truce break Manchu. So we wait for our Ming cores to finish and declare a war on Manchu. And since we waited for our cores to finish, our overextension is 0, which means it is much cheaper for us to boost our stability back to positive. And since we are making this a trend, we might as well fully annex Ming before we even finish our war with Manchu. Anytime you find yourself bordering a non-Sunni nation with no allies like Donghai here, you should go ahead and attack them and fully annex them the second that you get the chance. Now we can just fully annex Manchu and we are left with only a few Asian nations left on the map. Next, we decide to finish off Chagatai and feed them to Uzbek while also going in on Japan. We take all of Korea from them as well as much land on the islands themselves as we possibly can. This clip is just me admiring the Brahmin's privilege that makes you not have to worry about religious unity ever, and is kind of pretty broken. While we wait for our truce with Japan, we decide to go back in on Russia since our truce is up with them as well. We make absolute mincemeat of the Russian borders and our noodles are just... it's gross. During this time, it is also very important that we keep filling out the map. So we have spy networks in as many countries as we possibly can that have vision where we want it, and we steal maps as we need to make sure that we can see what we're going to be conquering. Here we finish integrating Mongolia and our cores are almost finished, and we soon will be truce breaking Japan to try and finish them off as fast as we can. We go in and truce break Japan and soon take as much land as we possibly can. Having the fall of Kyoto give us an additional 150 mana is also a plus. When we can, we start the integration of Uzbek and wait for our cores to finish so that we can go back in and truce break Russia. We clean up our borders a little bit before going in and taking our sixth idea, which is quality. During this time, I am also struggling with governing capacity a little bit, so we are continuing to build these state house manufactories in every state as we conquer it. Because I'm still not satisfied with the gore that is my borders with Russia, it is time to truce break them again. We take even more land from them, cleaning up our borders substantially. And our game state is looking very, very strong. We have consolidated basically all of Asia and have moved into Eastern Europe rather effectively. Very soon we will be getting imperialism, and that will allow us to take more Sunni land in Africa in order to form the Caliphate. That will let us truce break even better because the Caliphate gets a huge 20% reduction to stability cost, as well as some other great modifiers. Here we finish off integrating Uzbek, and because our cost to core up land is so cheap, we are pretty ahead of time on our admin tech. Because of this, I think it is reasonable to take the admin tech level 23 to get the bonus 10% admin efficiency, even though we are 6 years ahead of time. This will for sure let us fully annex Russia in our final truce break with them, and now our borders are a lot cleaner and less messy. Now our focus is to finish down Japan. The reason we want to get them down as fast as possible is that after we assimilate the Japanese culture group, we get a huge 10% addition to our morale of armies. This will make our units even beefier once we go in and face the stronger European nations. Now that we have basically consolidated and have 100% trade power in almost all of Asia, it is time to start finishing up our trade companies in the region. If we add all the provinces to trade companies that we possibly can, pushing them over the 50% control limit, we will gain a boatload of extra merchants that will let us push every single downstream node all the way to Persia, letting us collect even more money and increasing our economic snowball. Eventually though, it will also make sense to collect in some upstream nodes that are further more upstream than Persia. This may be Aleppo, Novgorod, or some other European trade nodes as we push further and further in. The year is 1687 and we have finally taken Diplotech level 23. This lets us create client states as well as gives us access to Imperialism Casus Belli. This will let us go in and declare war on the Mamluks immediately, allowing us to take all of their land in Arabia minus a few provinces. That gives us the provinces required to form the Caliphate. It also lets us get a border with Tunis and allows us to get closer to Morocco and Spain, who also have provinces that we need. Right around now, if your economy is doing very well, you will be eligible for the economic hegemon. This gives you a bunch of bonuses, and since you're going to be getting a world conquest regardless and this isn't a multiplayer game, you should go and take the first hegemon that you possibly can. This will basically mean you can get no more allies or peacefully vassalize any other nations, but the economic benefits are extremely strong. There is also a strong case for the naval hegemon that decreases liberty desire of subjects by a good margin, which will be useful for later in the game once the Age of Revolutions happens. You also get bonus artillery damage from the back row, and that's pretty broken on its own. Then I suppose the military hegemon is also pretty good. Once you have a 1 million standing army, you'll get a bonus 20% siege ability once it is at its max power, as well as -3 national unrest, 10% provincial war score cost reduction, and a bunch of other good modifiers. Here we beat up on Morocco and take all of their provinces, one of which is required for forming the Caliphate. Now our sights are set on Hormuz, the Ottomans, and Spain, who have the last 5 provinces that we need. Our first target is the Ottomans, who is actually allied to Hormuz, but because we're not able to take them out in one war, we decide to just white peace them and try and take as much land from the Ottomans as we can, and come back for our province later. We carpet siege down the Ottoman Balkans after occupying Anatolia, and we take almost every single coastal province that we can. After this, the Ottomans' navy will basically crumble and fall, and we will be able to destroy them on land and sea. It is finally the year 1700 and the Enlightenment has arrived. Unfortunately, we did not get this to fire in any of our universities, but because we have invested in so many, it will spread pretty quickly throughout our stated land. Additionally, we will also be conquering all of the land that will have the Enlightenment, so we should be able to embrace it pretty quickly once we move into Germany and the rest of Europe. After our truce ends with Hormuz, we were able to take even more land from the Ottomans in a separate peace deal. Despite giving us a big bump in aggressive expansion due to the Holy Roman Empire, we were able to take a bunch of their land as well as fully annex Hormuz, giving us one of the last provinces we need for the Caliphate. Because we now have imperialism, we can also finish off some of the Sunni nations in the East Indies. Basically, all that is left from here is the colonizers that we will clean up after we declare war on them in Europe. Additionally, since there are going to be many sieging armies as we declare war on all of these German nations, we should be upgrading our forts to as high as possible in all of the bordering provinces. Here we also take out a good chunk of the Great Horde, even though they are non-co-belligerent in our war with the Mamluks. We can also take a bunch of land from Austria after we siege down some of their forts, but we are going to be holding off on that as long as we can to make sure that we do not go too far overextended. When the stars align, it is finally time to piece them out, and we take a bunch of land from Austria. Now we focus back up on what is important, and that is forming the Caliphate. We see that Portugal and the Papal State will not join the war if we attack Spain, so we go ahead and declare an imperialism war on them. Now if we just take Toledo and piece them out for a few provinces, we can form the Caliphate and gain a huge bonus to our stab cost, as well as a bunch of other great modifiers. Now we're not struggling, but because we're playing very fast, our sieging armies are taking a lot of attrition, so we are basically bleeding manpower, and I think it's about time that we build some more manpower buildings. Apart from some isolated provinces, we've all but fully annexed the Mamluks, and they are not a threat any longer. Now all we need to do is stretch down into the rest of Africa after we finish up our war with Spain. We see here that they have landed some troops in Southeast Asia, so we build a merc stack. In your own runs, don't be afraid to drop down as many mercenaries as you possibly can. Your admin ideas make them really cheap and really effective. Here we see a good opportunity to attack a country with no allies, and we fully annex them without having to worry about too much aggressive expansion. We do the same thing with a couple of other small countries as well. With imperialism, we don't gain as much war score from beating Spain in battles, but the little bit that we do get is still pretty significant in speeding up our war. Because Spain is a colonizer, they have a bunch of random provinces throughout the world that we cannot actually see. Because of this, it is a good option to take exploration at some point before attacking the colonizers to fill out that map. Otherwise, use your boats to get into adjacent provinces and steal as many maps as you can. Here we carpet siege down Iberia, and we wait for the ticking war score to go above the threshold that lets us take 100% of the war score. Additionally, the Age of Reformation spawns since it has been 10 years after the Enlightenment. During this war, we also pick apart some other countries that we border since it is taking so long. Eventually, we are able to get Spain to a point where they will accept a pretty good peace deal for us. We select a majority of their colonies that are not in the New World, as well as the provinces we need to form the Caliphate. Forming the Caliphate gives us 20% reduction in stab cost, as well as +2 and 1 to tolerance of the True Faith and Heathens, which reduces our unrest even further. The Mughals' name is no more and the Caliphate replaces it, and though it is not as pretty, it is absolutely broken in terms of truce breaking and speeding up our world conquest substantially. Forming the Caliphate changes our government a little bit and does remove the option to gain an additional 5% core creation cost reduction. However, we do gain a few clicks that are absolutely broken in their own right. The one on the right, the Sanction the Holy War, gives us claims on every single bordering non-Muslim province. That is absolutely insane for reducing the core cost in the long run by a huge margin because we get claims on the land. Here you can see just how many claims that actually is. Moving into Lithuania and Croatia will be an absolute breeze going forward. The unfortunate thing about not going exploration expansion ourselves is that the absolute disgusting plague of the Spanish is now colonizing Siberia. Yay. Once your Age of Revolution's age bonus comes in, make sure to hit that artillery damage from the back row increase. It is absolutely broken and one of the best modifiers you can get in the age. Because we want to fully annex the colonizers, we do declare a truce break war with Spain, and once we finish our cores, we are going to be increasing our stab. It costs only 25 stab to increase the stability from negative all the way up to +1, and we're even going to go as far as to make it +3 because it is so cheap. Now, because we're going to be taking more of Castile's mainland, we need to be landing troops in the New World as well, so you should have a bunch of heavies and some decent transport ships ready to go. Additionally, during this time, it might be smart to pop your Golden Era. Golden Eras last for 50 years, and by the time we finish this Golden Era, I expect the world conquest will be basically finished. Here you see us taking on some fights in the New World on some defensive terrain and basically stack wiping all of these New World nations' stacks. In the peace deal, we're able to take a lot of land from Spain in Genoa, as well as one province in the New World to give our troops somewhere to wait before we go and truce break them again. Also during this time, we decided to take exploration to begin filling out the map so that we can actually see the provinces that Spain owns, so that we can take them without having to sift through the peace deal one province at a time. We declare another truce break war on Spain after the cores have finished. And if we go over and look, we see that we are at the absolute minimum number of admin points that you can spend to increase your stability. The hard cap is 10 admin, so we have reached that cap because of the additional stab cost reduction from the Golden Era. After a very long war and hard-fought time of exploring and stealing maps, we can finally see some of Spain's random provinces in New England, and we finally can take them and fully annex them to gain control of all of their many colonies. We send the peace deal and we see that New Castile is now green, and we zoom out and see that we are now the lead colonizer in all of EU4, having only taken the first 2 ideas or 3 ideas in the exploration idea group. Now that we have some unruly subjects and can see basically every province on the map, we are going to be canceling our exploration idea. So because we're at basically the Diplo cap, we are going to be Diplo banking by doing some culture conversions, taking the influence idea group and canceling those conversions to get our diplomatic power back to spend on the idea group. Unfortunately, those last 3 that we forgot to tick are going to stay that way because we are very careless, and we're going to waste some of that Diplo power because I got distracted. Also, we're going to construct the Panama Canal because we're swimming in money, and why not? Now that we have adjacent troops in the New World, we are building spy networks on basically every single remaining colonizer so that we can steal their maps when the cooldown arises, and our spy network is at the 50 threshold. Just like with admin tech level 23, admin tech level 27 gives us even more admin efficiency and some bonus government capacity. So even though we are 13 years ahead of time, we take it anyways because the admin efficiency makes our world conquest that much faster. Here we piece out a doll and our conquest of Africa is basically nearing its end. Only a few wars are required to basically take the rest of the continent, so we were going to be doing that as the time allows. And now it's time to go in on Portugal and try and finish off the rest of the colonizers to gain our 100% claim over the New World. It's basically simple enough to take control of their Iberian provinces. Now the rest of the struggle involves piecing out their allies, as well as finding the provinces that are just scattered throughout the world due to their pesky exploration expansion tendencies. We are going to be sitting on the Papal State for as long as possible and not piecing them separately out of the war. This will keep our war score high and let us peace out much sooner than if we did not do this. And now we basically take every province that Portugal has that is not in Iberia or in a colonial nation, so that after we do a second war with them, we should be able to fully annex them and inherit all of their colonies with a single click, just like we did with Spain. Now we just finish off Kilwa and we are basically almost done with Africa. If your colonies are disloyal, which they most likely will be, just pay off their debt and decrease their tariffs. Tariff value in colonial nations were nerfed severely several patches ago, and the money you will lose is basically nothing compared to the money you make from your trade. Here we finally finish off Portugal, and we have inherited the rest of their colonies, which pushes a lot of our colonies from taking on Spain over the 50% threshold of liberty desire. So we'll just go through and decrease all of the tariffs in our new colonies and see if that pushes them as far low as it can. Additionally, the Revolution Center has spawned in Lisbon. Unfortunately, it spawned in Portugal before we annexed them, and they did not become the revolutionary target. If we fully annex the revolutionary target, the Age of Revolutions would basically be, well, over almost. The reason I say this is because the revolutionary target gets a bunch of bonuses, and those who are not the revolutionary target get some penalties. Additionally, because there is a revolutionary target, our colonies will get aspirations of liberty, and their liberty desire will increase by a huge margin. So getting rid of the revolutionary target will get rid of that penalty for us and make sure our colonies are loyal. The revolution shouldn't be too much of an issue. However, if you do have the opportunity to attack and destroy the revolutionary target once the country flips revolutionary, you should go ahead and do that because your colonies will thank you for it. Now that we are the superior colonizing power, it is time to go to war with the remainder of the colonizers. France, unfortunately for them, didn't have a good colonial game, so they only have a few provinces in Africa, while England controls the rest of the major colonial nations. Here we go to war with some of the rest of the African countries and try to full annex them while carpet sieging France out of the war as well. We basically turned France into a giant blob within our borders, and our coalition is looking pretty spicy. But at this point we are so huge, a coalition poses almost zero threat. Our overextension is extremely high. I would highly recommend not going this high of overextension if you can help it, because your rebels will start spawning back where you have no more troops. Here we also annex Lithuania. Additionally, because our governing capacity is now peaking again, we are building our town halls in almost every province that we can. It only takes one war to annex Paraguay, and Cuba is our next target. The rest of the countries in Guinea will fall shortly after that, and Mali is the last remaining large African power. Now we fully annex Cuba, and it looks like Scandinavia will be flipping revolutionary if it continues to spread. Now I think that it's time we hire an admiral and go in on Great Britain. They have a lot of colonies, so now we just have to find the islands and click on them, making sure that we take them in the peace deal, so that in the second war with them we can fully annex them and inherit their colonies. Because we built such a huge navy to try and deal with the colonizers, it's time to take some buildings that increases our sailors as well. Here we take a lot of their colonial holdings as well as most of their land in Ireland to give us a foothold in going back and declaring a war on them again. Again, tariffs are absolutely useless, just reduce them as much as you can to reduce the liberty desire as far as it can go. In the second war, after a truce break with Great Britain, we're able to fully annex them, and now the New World is basically a nice shade of green. Now we just peace out Mali, and we're basically left with only a few countries left in Africa. In a war with Brittany, they were actually having an independence war with their colonial nation, and we can just declare on that and have our vassals do the work, while full annexing Brittany ourselves. Additionally, we're finishing off the last African countries, and then we won't have to deal with them anymore, just having the Europeans left. While in our second war with France, we decide that it is high time that the empire is dissolved, and we declare war on the Ottomans to bring in our huge coalition of all of Europe so that we can occupy the electors and dissolve the empire. The Ottomans are a great target for this war because they are so far from the empire and we have easy military access to them. Also, their troops are super weak and they are struggling economically, so if we occupy all of their provinces, we should be able to peace out the second that we dismantle the empire. And there we have it, we click the button, gain 100 prestige, and we can peace out of this obnoxious coalition war. We'll take a few provinces from the Ottomans and we'll call it a day. Now that we are peaced out of the coalition war, we can fully annex France. Since the coalition has been dispersed, we don't have to worry about that firing for a number of years. So now that we are in a race against the clock with the truce timers, we need to be annexing every country that we possibly can, eliminating tag after tag. Here we are finally able to finish off the Ottomans and take the 10% cavalry combat ability that we get from taking all of their culture group. Our core is finished and now it is time to go in on Scandinavia. They are the last major European power that we have left aside from Brandenburg, Prussia, and it's high time that we crush this revolutionary target. If we fully annex Scandinavia here, despite not using the Crush the Revolution CB, the revolution will be crushed regardless, and it should only take 2 wars. Here we just finish off Albania and take all of the land from their allies. We are spending a good amount of Diplo points here in separate pieces as well to take as many provinces as we can from countries that are allied to the countries that are our war targets. Piecing out Scandinavia, we are left with only Stockholm plus a few other provinces to take, and a second war with them should be a breeze. Also, despite us not losing the modifier of aspirations of liberty, our subjects are now loyal in the New World. Here we're able to finish off the Papal State in a single war, and in this war we are able to fully annex Brandenburg, which releases their 2 PU subjects as independent nations. Fighting Trier as well, all of the larger European nations shall be mine. And now basically all that we have left that is strong is Genoa and Prussia. Fighting these guys and taking all of their allies' land as co-belligerents or non-co-belligerents, it does not matter. We're able to basically eliminate the rest of the tags from the map. After only a few more wars, tag after tag is eliminated until all that is left is just Prussia, Scandinavia, and a few others. And because we can, we are now taking our last idea group. We decided to take quantity just because we're finishing up our run and we could use the extra stacks. And what's EU4 without losing a bunch of men to the Prussians? Taking out the rest of the OPMs, we are basically consolidating all of Europe with only silly Prussia and Bohemia left. It is 1780 and the Industrial Revolution has finally spawned. This is the first institution that we've spawned in our own provinces, and actually it spawns in Delhi. Fitting that it would spawn in one of us because there are basically only a few provinces left that we do not have control of. We are at war with the last 2 remaining independent nations in Scandinavia and Bohemia, and apparently Bohemia will be the last one to stand. We'll just wipe their troops and fully annex them, and there we have it, guys. We go to the Great Power list and all that is left is us, plus a little Bohemia with 0 development, but he'll go away after the month tick. We are the World Conquesting Caliphate, and on April 28th, 1781, we are finally done with the World Conquest achievement. I'm going to outro with this time-lapse right here, and if you want to see a more advanced time-lapse shortly after this video releases, we will be releasing the full time-lapse in a standalone video. Oh, I cannot believe I have made it to the end of this video. It has been an absolute blast to make these video guides for you guys, and if you want to see more guides like this, drop a comment down below for what you want to see, how you want to see it. If you like the guides, if you don't like the guides and want to see some more exploity goodness, drop that in the comments down below as well, and give the video a like while you're at it. We have a bunch more exploity goodness coming for you guys soon with a variety of other games and challenges, so stick around and hit the notification bell icon for that if you want to be notified when our videos go live. And if you followed along with your own run, we have a dedicated Discord channel for you guys to post your screenshot goodies and share your success or failures with the class. Lastly, I want to thank my Patreon supporters. Your support means the world to me, and if you have the means to do so and would like to support the channel as well, if you join our Patreon, you'll get exclusive Discord server roles as well as early access to all of the videos that I release on the channel. So go ahead and check the link in the description below if you want to show your support. Also, QB merch, go look at that. Look at the merch. I'm plugging merch now. Please enjoy the rest of this time lapse, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one.